Newcastle have not conceded 4 goals in the Premier League since Brentford back at the beginning of December. And well, Manchester City, I feel like they've just been inconsistently consistent over the last couple months. But Manchester City 4, Newcastle 0. Omar Marmoush, welcome to the Premier League. Mohamed Salah, be careful because there is a new Egyptian on the block. I just don't know, guys, how everyone else in the Premier League allowed Manchester City, and not just the Premier League actually, everyone in Europe allowed Manchester City to have a free run at Omar Marmoush. I know the price tag is a bit hefty as well, 70 million plus for a January transfer fee, but Omar Marmoush for Manchester City in that front three, Savinho, Haaland, once they get that chemistry going over the next couple of months, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and it's very scary. Even Savinho, I feel like today's game, he did a lot, despite the fact that he only had an assist, he didn't get a goal, but he did a lot, and he had a field day against Lewis Hall in the back line. Just kept getting at him consistently, and Lewis Hall tried to hold his own, and sometimes he was successful with it, but I think the star of the show will be Omar Marmoush. Manchester City this season, guys, they are a weird team to watch. I don't know what it is with Manchester City. I watched them blow a lead against PSG. I watched them blow a lead against Real Madrid. I've watched them blow leads multiple times this season, and then they come out against a team that is defensively well oiled like Newcastle. They've got a great pressing structure, and they just make them look very amateur-ish. Now, that's no criticism or heavy criticism on Newcastle per se. I just feel like Manchester City were just the better team today. Let's start with actually a player that I don't think will get a lot of plaudits, because like I said, Marmoush will be the star of the show. Nico Gonzalez in that midfield, immense for Manchester City. He, in that base, he offers protection line for the back line. He offers that protection for the back line. And he also allows his midfielders like Gundogan to get more forward. Gundogan in those more attacking roles. And he's not playing as a single pivot. He was playing in a double pivot. But essentially, in transition, he was just the base of that midfield, winning all his duels, had the most pass completion throughout the game, and winning his duels successfully in the middle of the pitch, you know, coming up against Tonali, Willock, Bruno Guimaraes, etc. He offers also that physical aspect of duels as well, which allows you to come out and have a bit more edge over the opponent. And like I said, Newcastle is not no small team. They ain't no amateur team. They are physically a very well coached team. They have a lot of endurance. They're able to press. We saw them do it against Arsenal. The way that they came out against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup and the way that they came out today, it looks like two different teams, honestly. And if we're talking about exactly where Manchester City got it right, I feel like Newcastle on the flip side were targeting that left hand side. They were targeting City's right hand side, their left hand side. They were getting the ball to Gordon. You saw Isak coming out on the left, trying to get up against Rico Lewis, trying to get up against Kusanov, another player who, after that shaky debut today, I feel like he held his own in the back line as well. Kind of kept Isak busy in terms of physically. Him and Stones had the two of them had a very good performance. But I feel like Newcastle were targeting that side a lot, and as a result, I saw Nico Gonzalez kind of drifting in to just offer some coverage to them on that side. Defensively, Kusanov and Lewis, Kusanov and Rico Lewis were able to hold their own, but Savinho as well getting back defensively. And that's the thing with football, guys. It's an 11-man game. You know, everyone on the pitch has to offer something in defensive transitions. Everybody has to offer something going forward. And talking about Manchester City going forward, I mean, again, Ederson with another assist. This guy got more assists than some outfield players this season. Like, what? This guy, he's so funny. Watching Ederson is so funny, because I can see him have a howler midweek and then get an assist on the weekend, just like he done today. A great ball over a very high line that Newcastle was playing, and Trippier caught out twice for 2 of the goals that Marmoush scored. I think one of them he gets a deflection, and the second one he's just caught out. He mistimes his jump, I think, completely for that ball from Ederson. Omar Marmoush just lobs Dubravka, gets his first goal in the Premier League, and then obviously goes on to get his hat-trick. But Manchester City, for me, don't be fooled, guys. Me personally, I'm not fooled by them in these kind of performances, because they are not consistent this season. They can have a performance like this and then have a performance in the manner that they did against Arsenal. They can have a performance like this, have a performance like they did against Real Madrid, have a performance like this, have a performance after like a game against PSG where they throw away leads. I am not convinced with Manchester City. I'll Are they going to go win the title? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But Manchester City now sneak in to the top 4. Yeah, they sneak into the top 4. They're comfortably sitting in 4th place. And this was a big game for Newcastle, because if they had won this game, it would have allowed them to close the gap on the teams in 5th and 6th. But now they sit in 7th place. But I think Newcastle as well are still going about it quite quietly this season. They're having a good season. And this maybe is just a little bump, hurdle in the road for them this season. But I think Newcastle can take a lot away from this game, because they look like a shadow of themselves. I don't even feel like they got out of gear 1, if I'm being honest. I genuinely don't feel like they were able to get out of gear 1, and this is not the Newcastle that I feel like I've been accustomed to watching over the last couple of months in particular. You know, the high intensity, the high pressing, the man-to-man. I feel like Eddie Howe approached this a lot more conservatively in comparison to maybe the Arsenal game. I guess with that, there's a cup final on the line, whereas this game is 3 points that are on the line. I felt like, you know, there wasn't much energy in the press. There wasn't really much of a press from Newcastle. It's either there was, and Man City were just able to play out of it very comfortably, which I don't think was necessarily always the case. And you saw the front line. You saw Gordon, Isaac going a bit central, moving from the central role, and going out quite wide a bit often. You know, if I was them, I'm not them, but if I was them, I would have gone at Kusanov. I would have been able to try get at the centre backs and force some uncomfortable situations for them. But I feel like they were a lot less proactive with the press, and just allowed City a lot of time in possession, comfortability getting out. But that midfield for me was so solid for Manchester City, in particular, like I said, Nico Gonzalez. He hasn't really, you know, Man City have the luxury, guys, unfortunately, they got the luxury of going out in the January transfer window and dropping 200 million on multiple players, bringing in a 70 million player here, 40 million player here, etc, etc. They have the luxury to do that and bring in quality players like Gonzalez, like Marmoush, like Kusanov, who hopefully will probably will grow into a great centre-back for them. I hope he doesn't, but I like him as a player. Man City have that luxury, but that luxury is not going to kind of cover up the problems for them this season. Now, a more clinical team today, a team that maybe played with a lot more intensity and a lot more physicality, may have created a lot more uncomfortable situations for Manchester City, but Newcastle didn't do that. And, you know, I watched this game and it kind of reminds me of when I was watching Bournemouth versus Forest a couple of weeks ago, where Forest just looked like a shadow of themselves and Bournemouth was just a better team. I feel like that's the case today. I don't think it's a big telling sign or a big problem for Newcastle to worry about. I just think it's one of them games today when Newcastle were just not the better team. But there were some players for me that can walk away from the game quite comfortably with their head held high, and I think Lewis Hall is one of them. You know, coming up against tricky Savinho, who's good on his feet, can, you know, get past the guy, likes to pull out a skill or two, cutting on his left foot, linking up well with Haaland, with Foden, etc. I really feel like Lewis Hall was able to try and control those situations, and at some points Newcastle decided to start doubling up on him. But let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Manchester City, I am not fooled by you. I am not, 4-0 does not fool me. I know that there are still cracks in this Manchester City team, and I think Newcastle definitely got to hold their head held. And I know Newcastle, this is just probably a blimp in the road. But listen, guys, be sure to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe if you're new here.